Geoffrey Boycott has a column in the Daily Telegraph. It's one of the few things that it seems like he's still allowed to do. The BBC finally distanced themselves from him, though they did that years after his domestic violence conviction in France, and they even kept him on after he said he would need to black up, essentially, to get a knighthood.
This is the last knock. My dad told me to say this.
Anyway, I digress. In this column, from what they call, I played around 37 three-day matches in a season. This was actually sent to me by a friend, a person who likes things to be accurate, especially in cricket. So he went and looked at this, and he couldn't find a year where Boycott went beyond 28 first-class matches in a season. However, Boycott does say matches, and there might be other red ball three-day games that he played in. The thing is that on Cricket Archive, there's almost every major cricket match that has ever been played. And they do miss some, but they don't miss many. So when you look at everything that you could play in a particular season, test matches, championship matches, first class friendlies, second 11 championship and minor county championship matches, not to mention the occasional jazz hat game that went for 3 days as well, there does not seem to be a year where he passes 29 matches. Club cricket in England was only for 1 day, so he doesn't mean that. So it is possible he is misremembering or counting some single day matches in one season. I don't know, but I am assuming that Boycott is slightly wrong here. Although, to be fair, he's not usually wrong about his own career. But even if he played one season of 37, he certainly didn't play that many regularly. And you may wonder why this matters, because for many of us, listening to many retired before we were born, or just after in the case of me, on modern cricket is rarely informative. Especially if that man was once tricked into doing a video to tell kids to get out of bed in the morning. It isn't that Boycott doesn't possess a lot of cricket knowledge. It's that by not keeping up to date with the times, most of what he says is kind of no longer relevant, sadly. For instance, this entire piece, and the reason he's mentioning this perhaps mythical 37 red ball matches in a season, is because he's upset that T20 cricket is ruining batting. And I'm still yet to hear a very good argument why it isn't also ruining bowling, which is currently kicking batting's ass. But that's for another day. Take this bit where he talks about the structure of cricket and how it is driven by money and T20. This is of course ignoring the many times before and during Boycott's career when money also drove cricket. In fact, from the time they put a fence up around the oval, money always drove our game. But again, that's for another time. Let's just get to the nub. Boycott thinks that modern cricketers don't play enough red ball matches. And I get it. But in 2019, the last year before COVID did all sorts of weird things, English players played 14 county games. So that's 56 days of cricket in a summer. In 1986, Boycott's last year in county cricket, there were 24 three-day matches played for 72 days. And when he started his career back in 1962, they were playing 32 three-day games a year. So there is no doubt that there is less cricket played now. And honestly, probably rightly. My friend tells me that there were 39 first-class matches for Yorkshire between the 29th of April 1961 and the 15th of September 1961. 117 days of scheduled cricket in a 140-day period. Yeah, that's not for me. But I think here is the most important thing. What other first-class competitions in the world have been playing more red ball cricket than England? Ranji Trophy is at 9 usually at maximum. The Shield in Australia is 10, which is the same as the franchise tournament in South Africa. New Zealand is only 8 in the Plunket. And if playing the most first-class games was important, especially for batting, England would have been the #1 team since the beginning of time until now. Because they have always played so much more top-level cricket than everyone else, and they still do. Tom Blundell is 31, and he has managed 84 first-class matches in his career. Ollie Pope has just turned 24. He already has 68. The idea that English players aren't playing enough first-class cricket at the moment just doesn't stack up. Here, Boycott talks about how Joe Root is a better player for not being involved in T20. Root is extraordinary. But then again, so is Williamson, who plays T20 cricket all the time. These are two all-time great players. One of them wants to play more T20 cricket, but hasn't been selected. And the other one is playing it, although of recent times, not brilliantly. So here you can see Boycott talks about how batting has changed because of T20 cricket. And that is undeniable. Of course, when he and others talk about all the changes to modern cricket, it's funny that they never talk about DRS, or the wobble ball, or how West Indies changed bowling forever. If you want to go back further, covered wickets and helmets. In the case of the West Indies, some of those things actually happened while Boycott was playing. In fact, during Boycott's career, perhaps the biggest change was going from the front foot no ball to the back foot no ball, and how that actually changed how bowlers delivered. Boycott lived through the game changing. And what happened for him and for other players is that professional athletes change with it, or they have to go and get a new job. And I'm also old enough to remember how Boycott moaned about how ODI cricket ruined batting in the 90s. And that was followed by one of the greatest batting eras ever. But Boycott is right. Modern players certainly play a lot of white ball cricket when they are young, meaning that it could certainly corrupt their mind. In fact, look at this bloke who started his career just after the T20 bloom and had to juggle a very white ball heavy diet early on in his career, which clearly ruined his red ball runs. Oh, no, sorry. This is Jarrod, who is basically the same age as Jos Buttler and younger than other scoopy players like Dilshan, Maxwell and AB de Villiers. In fact, I would argue that Root has taken some of his white ball skills into the red ball game. Most notably is the ability to rotate strike. He's like in perpetual motion at the crease. In fact, this entire Boycott piece is essentially about how great Root is, but he must have forgotten that Root actually started as an opening bowler in Yorkshire's T20 team. I mean, that's not quite true, but that's how I choose to remember it. In this last test, Root played an exceptional innings, but remember, there were 200 scored in the match, and the other one was by Daryl Mitchell. Mitchell only had one warm-up game in England to prepare for this series, but he was playing a lot of cricket in April and May. You know, for the Rajasthan Royals in the IPL. Well, he wasn't playing that much, but he played. So Mitchell essentially went IPL match, warm-up game, 100 at Lords in a test. He had a top order falling apart twice and the ball moving around, and he overcame all that and played an incredible innings and gave his team a real chance at winning. And Mitchell's score was in the second innings. In the first innings, New Zealand really had only one batter stand up, and he made a stoic 42 not out as he kind of ran out of partner. That's right. Before Colin de Grandhomme's heel became the heel of the game twice, he was pulling New Zealand to a first innings good enough to almost steal a lead. And this is the same de Grandhomme who has a career strike rate of nearly 160 in T20. And he's also now played for quite a few T20 sides over his career since leaving Zimbabwe. In his piece, Boycott also mentions Bairstow's innings to prove that modern players think about things differently because of T20. It's a weird pull because Bairstow is older than Root. But more importantly, his attacking play seems to be a tactical call from the team. You could see Stokes did the same thing when he came in after Bairstow. And he also specifically thanked Bairstow for his innings after the game. I think they wanted him to go hard. I don't really think this was a T20 thing. But the truth is that England's players are having to juggle white ball cricket alongside red ball cricket. You know, kind of like the whole rest of the world. And while you can make a very good claim that the quality of cricket is higher due to professionalism and more people playing the game around the world, players in Boycott's era were certainly more specialised in red cricket. Well, that's at the start of Boycott's career anyway. Because by the end, Boycott actually played 313 List A games, although they were actually with a red ball and kind of nothing like T20 or ODIs today. But you get the point. But they were still limited overs. As for Joe Root, the man Boycott has praised many times in this piece, I had a look at how many T20s he played by the time he was 25, because Boycott mentions Crawley and Pope over and over again, and how T20 cricket has corrupted how they play. Well, at the age of 25, Root had played 41 T20s. Weirdly enough, Crawley and Pope haven't quite turned 25 yet. But if you look at their record so far, Crawley has played the exact same amount of T20s as Root did. Pope just has a couple more. But if you look at how many List A games that Root played, well, there's a big difference there. When Joe Root was developing as a young player, he was at an all-you-can-eat smorgasbord of white balls. The amount of cricket matches that only an English summer can try and cram in. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much if Boycott's 37 3-day games a summer is real or not. Because there is no way you could fit that much cricket in anymore, and also, it's quite clearly not a good idea. Although it is probably worth mentioning that if they were playing 37 matches per summer, that was probably driven by money, right? It's probably also true that Boycott played cricket in South Africa several times during apartheid because of money as well. And the real problem with Boycott's article is the basic reasoning is correct. There is a problem with the structure of English cricket. In fact, there is a problem with the structure of pretty much all cricket. But it really doesn't help anyone when a former player goes on about the good old days, because they were also a bit crazy. And that system would be completely untenable now. The current one is maybe worse, certainly more accidental, and definitely scattered all over the place. But it is the one that Root came up in. Remember, he has played 20 over cricket, 100 ball cricket, 50 over cricket, and 40 over cricket just at home domestically in England. And yet, he still turned out alright. In fact, modern cricket has also given us Babar Azam, Virat Kohli, Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, AB de Villiers. There's some good cricketers out there that came up from this weird system. Like Boycott's era, this is certainly not perfect. No one would design cricket to be like this if they were starting from scratch. But so far in Joe Root's career, even with all the whack at T20 that he had to play as a wee lad and the list A games that never ended, Root is actually averaging more than Boycott did in Test cricket, and Boycott was an incredible player. Root's adapting to modern cricket in the same way Boycott had to work out how on earth any human being can play 37 games in a summer.
Do you seriously think the people here wouldn't notice if you were only half out of the bed? Come on, wise up. Did I walk out to bat when I was half asleep or half out of bed? Of course not. I bloody well didn't. Remember, the best technique is to look at that bed and then try and get as far away from it as possible.